Across 5 Aprils by Irene Hunt. Jethro Creighton works on a farm with all his family. His family is Matthew Creighton, Ellen, John, Bill, Ginny, Tom, and the family friend Eb. Married to John was Nancy, and they have 2 kids. Shadrach Yale was a friend to the family and loved Ginny, who loved him back. They could not marry yet because Matt, Ginny's father, would not allow her to marry so young. Shad also taught Jethro. Mary, his sister, died in a wagon accident a while back. The accident happened because a young man named Travis Brito shot above the head of the horses and caused them to go crazy. The shot was fired because he shunned society. Society had teased him because of the name Berto. His grandfather had been a horse thief. When people heard that Travis was responsible for Mary dying, they were very angry and were going to hang him. Matthew Crane, Mary's own father, marked his respect in the community by standing with 100 men in the cold, telling them not to shed the blood of another person. They didn't shed more blood that night, but were still angry. There was dread in the country of a war between the North and the South. The family talked about the reason for the conflict that would come. They all had their own thoughts and opinions about the matter. They were restless that night as they waited for news to be brought to them. Shadrach brought the news that the Confederates fired on Fort Sumter. They were hungry and weak, so they gave in. No one was killed, but the war had now begun. People had been cheering for the first victory, but that was over quickly when an event called Bull Run went horribly wrong. Shadrach and John planned to join in the winter after they took care of some things in the year. Tom and Ed left to join the army in the summer. Shortly after they left, there was a battle at Wilson's Creek, which was closer than other battles. Jeth now sleeps in Bill's room. Jethro has trouble sleeping and Bill talks with him. Bill gets in a fight with John, and so he decides reluctantly to go to Kentucky and maybe join the South. People were celebrating Ulysses Grant's victories. Tom wrote home of the battle and journey at Donelson. Jethro went over to Shad's home to spend a night with him. Shadrach's room was cheerful and comfortable despite its roughness. He had a guitar on his wall, his books on shelves, and a cupboard made of heavy walnut. To Jethro, the room seemed perfect, and he did not want to leave. They ate a good dinner together and then talked. They talked about the family and the war, not just as teacher and students, but like good friends or like brothers. They had also talked about Mr. Lincoln. They both admired him. They mentioned how Bill was not wrong, but they weren't wrong either, since it was what they thought was right. That was how the wars were, and people thought. Shad promised to leave his books with Jethro and Ginny so that they could study while he was gone. Jethro hears his mother want for things to go back to the way they were. Jethro is 10 and is going to Newton for the first time by himself. A memory of Mary sprung in his mind as he was going down the road on the wagon. He made it to Newton and got what they needed. He was on his way out of the store when a group of adults asked about him and Bill. One of them was Dave Berto, the father of Travis. They said that they did not like that his brother was in the South. They left him after they were scorned by Red Milton, the newspaper editor. Red takes him to the restaurant after getting his wagon team taken care of. Jeff travels home with some cake that he got from the restaurant. He finds Dave on the way home and lets him get a ride. Dave takes over because Jeff is getting tired. A man tried to scare the horses. Dave got them through it. Dave got off at his home and then Jeff finished the trip. Jeff reluctantly told his family all that had happened. Matt did not sleep that night and was worried the next day. Matt was no longer his happy, energetic self. Now he was a man who looked 20 years older and was becoming weak. Jethro and Jenny must now take care of all the chores by themselves. Their neighbor, Ed Turner, has a son, and they help every chance they can. The news of Grant's army being surprised at Pittsburgh Landing reached Jethro. There were upwards of 20,000 deaths, and 12,000 of them were boys from their side. People weren't praising Grant so much anymore, but he has not lost all his praise. Jethro and Ginny and Ed wouldn't let their parents know about what happened until they heard from Tom and Ed. Ginny got a letter from Shadrach and wouldn't share it yet. Jethro has spent more time with Nancy and John's kids so that they will be happy. 3 drunk men came on horses to their house. They threw a package to their gate and ran off. The package was a bundle of switches and cords with a note. They were being threatened because of Bill being a soldier for the South. They had a man every night in the yard with a gun out on the watch. but no one came for weeks. They put a dog outside to watch over them, but it was stolen a short time later. A few nights later, they woke up to the smell of smoke and the sound of fire crackling. Their stables and pastures were being burned down. He tried to get some water, but his well was filled with coal oil. They got a new dog that was more devoted to Jethro. Dan Lawrence, son of a neighbor, brought the news of what happened to Tom. The morning was good, and then a cannon roared and many screamed. Instantly, many died. They all went outside and began firing. Dan saw Tom shot, and he couldn't be saved. They wondered if the bullet could have been shot by Bill. The war is still raging. There have been rises of generals and falls. Work on the farm isn't yet what it used to be, but with the help of others, it's getting there. 2 battles, Fredericksburg and Stone River, were talked and wondered about for a long time because many died. People are beginning to question if the war will end. Deserters came hungry and scared from the war. Eb was one of them. He was ashamed and talked to Jethro. Jethro wrote a letter to Abraham Lincoln about Eb's troubles in the war. He received a letter back from himself. It said that he understood the worries of him and many others, and that Eb should go back to the army. He ended it with, "May God guide us both in the days ahead of us." Shadrach Yale had now lived through Antietam, Fredericksburg, and Chancellorsville, which were all deathly battles. John wrote home too, but mostly asking about how things were at home. Eb wrote too that he was back and working with humility. News of Gettysburg came and pained the hearts of many. Shad was severely injured at Gettysburg. Once the Cranes had heard this, Matt let Jenny go to him in Washington. She was married to Shad there while he was still hurt. Jenny and Jethro wrote often while they were apart. John wrote home again, but it was a long narrative about what happened at Chattanooga. He said that it was a proud win. The plan was to attack them with 3 groups on different sides. John's group was eager and pushed in. They did the most. The president gave the Gettysburg Address. John was in a camp when he saw among the prisoners was Bill. They talked and caught up. Bill said he was not there and did not kill Tom. General Sherman's men marched their way through the enemy's land, taking things and leaving destruction behind them. Many people saw this as cruel, or that they deserved it. Jethro was now 13. He was becoming like Bill, and his parents were afraid to lose him. Jethro was also still learning and becoming smart. Red Milton told them that peace, if it came, would not be a perfect pearl. There would be scars and hate for a long time. Congress had just passed off the 13th Amendment, but Red had told Jeff how this was a small thing. He said that even after this amendment, there would be hate and discrimination. Finally, in the 5th April of the war, the end was reached. The entire town was celebrating, and then it was ruined by some more news. This news was that Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. Shadrach Yale, now Jethro's brother, woke Jeff up in the middle of the night, and they talked. Jenny, Jethro, and Shad live together now. The end.